The book of Acts, chapter 18, verse 1, it says this: "After these things, he," meaning Paul, "left Athens, and he went to Corinth," which is where we are right now. Just over my right shoulder up on the hill is the old ancient Acropolis, and just down below, over my right shoulder, is the actual Bema, which we'll talk about more in our discussion in Paul's time here. We're approximately 37 miles from Athens. Corinth was one of the four most significant cities in the Gentile world at the time, and it was situated on the northeast corner of the Peloponnese. It was very near this land bridge called an isthmus, which meant two ports, two seaports. There's a port on my right and a port on my left, with this land bridge in between of approximately 4 miles. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But because of this landmass, there was an actual road called the Duelkas, which was about it was a little over 4 miles long, probably 6 to 8 miles long. This paved road that connected the two seaports for the shipments that went through here between the Saronic Gulf and the Gulf of Corinth. By using this overland passageway, passengers could deliver their cargo to one port, ship the cargo across this short isthmus, this land bridge, and bring it to the other side, to this other port to ship the goods off to Europe, if you will. So it really made this an extremely traveled and significant city. The city of Corinth had actually been partially destroyed around 146 BC, kind of laid dormant for about 100 years, and then in 44 BC under Julius Caesar was actually rebuilt. So when Paul enters this city around 50 plus AD, some 90 to 100 years after the rebuild, it's a relatively new city. It's an old city, but it's a rebuilt city. And again, we mentioned before, there are two seaports. Seaports were known as huge travel centers, but they were really cesspools of immorality where the sailors would come in and have tons of time and money on their hands to create problems. Two seaports, really twice the problems. There are all kinds of estimates of how many people lived here during Paul's day. Some of the estimates climb as high as 600 plus thousand people, which is probably a bit high. They say within the city walls of Corinth during Paul's day, we're talking about at least 150,000 people, which means if you include the people outside the city, well, maybe you do get into over 500,000 people. It's a hugely populated area. And Corinth was extremely proud during Paul's day of its Roman status. In fact, some even said it was more Rome than Rome itself in a lot of ways. Corinth was also famous for a lot of things, for its pottery, for its bronze, the Corinthian bronze, which was very famous, but it was also the sponsor of the Isthmian Games. So you had these huge athletic games that took place every 2 years. So in here you had not only all these artisans, but you had athletes. So a lot of Paul's imagery that came from the script, that he used in the scriptures, probably came from Corinth. Like a lot of Roman cities, and particularly in Corinth, maybe more so than almost anywhere, the city was devoted to many gods, and the immorality that went along with these gods was almost unparalleled. It's the Las Vegas of Greece in a lot of ways. And so we have at the top of the Acropolis, we have the Temple of Aphrodite, and at the bottom we have the Temple of Melicertes, who's the god of the seafarers. It's said that the Temple of Aphrodite had over 1,000 prostitutes, and because they were actually on salary, if you will, by this city, and on behalf of the goddess of Aphrodite, they actually lived in the city, not at the temple, which was actually a very small temple at the time. They were amongst the people, so again, the immorality was rampant in this place. Paul actually spent up to 18 months on his second missionary journey in this place, in this city. And he spent at least 3 months in his third missionary journey, a longer time than he spent almost anywhere else, which makes you wonder how he pulled that off in a place like this. And there were several reasons for this. First of all, he met a Jewish couple here that had the same occupation of tent making, which we'll talk about further in our discussion. But he was occupied with the same work, this tent making work that they were. Second of all, he had a remarkable vision while he was there. And so these two reasons actually pulled him in and had him spend time with the church here. Obviously, the letters of 1st and 2nd Corinthians were written to the church here. And Paul probably wrote 1st and 2nd Thessalonians and the book of Romans while here at Corinth.